for the glory of old state, for her founder strong and great, for the future that we wait. Raise the song, raise the song.
Where else would you rather be? I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association. Welcome to the People of Penn State. Each week on the podcast, you can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they're passionate about, and you can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State Network. The People of Penn State podcast can be found on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. Subscribe and give us a rating. Ratings and reviews help others find these great stories. Well, today we're going to talk to Katherine Pohlidal. She is the director of the nationally recognized Ruth Matthews Bourger Women with Children program at Misericordia University, with over 20 years of experience as a clinician, case manager, treatment provider, and administrator, both in clinical treatment settings and over the last 17 years within higher education at both Ursinus College and Misericordia University. She holds a BA in sociology as well as an MED in counselor education from right here at the Pennsylvania State University, as well as an MBA from Alvernia. Katherine is a Pennsylvania State Certified Addictions Counselor and Professional Counselor. She has been featured in both regional and national news with The Today Show, NPR, StoryCorps, Inside Higher Ed, New York Times, and the Associated Press, and on and on and on for her work with the Bourger Women with Children program. Let's go ahead and welcome Katherine Pohlidal to the podcast. Katherine, how are you today?
I'm wonderful, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you today, Paul. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. Let's get it started right at the very beginning. How did you become a Penn Stater?
I would say at birth. It's part of our birthright as a Palladal family. Very happy to say that my mom is also a Penn State alum. She graduated in 1966, and I think that really just set the course for all of us. There are four of us kids, and really just kind of laid the groundwork there when we were growing up, just learning about Penn State, knowing how important it was to her as a university and her degree. And it really served as the inspiration for all of us to follow in her path. So I'm proud to say that, going to Penn State is something that we all pride ourselves on as a family and as part of our educational legacy. So,
well, let's go ahead and give them a shout out. A shout out to Edwina, your brother Rich, your brother John, Elizabeth, your sister, who was a national champion when she was here at Penn State as a women's rugby player, sister-in-law Reagan Palfy, now Reagan Palfy Pohlidal, and your other sister-in-law, Christy Pohlidal. Really, the blue and white runs deep in your family.
Yes, even in terms of marriage and things, it seems to be a requirement, which is fine by us. It's just the more the merrier. But yeah, we've all had a tremendous experience at Penn State and all participated in different things while we were there. And when you put us all together, we just have a wonderful time, not only reminiscing, but celebrating Penn State University.
Well, myself, having had some friends that played rugby, and I see your brother and your sister both participated in rugby, those family gatherings have to be pretty enthusiastic when you get together.
Yeah, I don't know if it speaks to maybe a little bit of a violent tendency in our family, but I, for one, kind of bruise like a peach, so I sort of get out of the way. But my sister is happy to share with my brother all the time, though, that she does have a national championship, a medal. And although he subsequently went on to have a career as the coach for West Point Military Academy with the rugby organization there. So he in his own right has done a stellar job as well. But a lot to celebrate. But yeah, we're a pretty animated crew.
Well, your family was involved in a lot of different things at Penn State. You were as well. Talk about your student experience and some of the things that you were active in when you were here at Penn State.
Yeah, well, my experience was tremendous. From the start, I think that I just felt right at home when I entered Penn State, and focusing on my major in sociology, I was really committed, of course, to my academics. I was in the University Scholars Program at that time, now it's Schreier Honors College, but did that. And then also was in a number of organizations and groups affiliated with my major, sociology club, psych club. And then also, I will say too, I think that just the overall experience at Penn State, just being able to participate in all sorts of activities throughout the trajectory of those 4 years was just rather incredible. Being at Penn State in the mid 90s, it was just a really neat time, just for everything from music to, entertainment and the arts. And I will also say that because of my educational status, I was housed with a person that was completely random. I chose not to pick a roommate when I went to Penn State, and I had the incredible good fortune of being housed with a Fulbright scholar from Cyprus, who to this day is one of my best friends, is more like a sister to me. And we ended up living together for the 4 years that we were there, and just made some amazing memories and made some incredible friendships. So just, overall, I would say it's an all-encompassing experience. And I will also note that my first higher ed job and experience was also at Penn State. I would actually work for the FitCap program with student orientation as an orientation leader for freshmen. And I loved it. I think it was just such a great experience to meet incoming freshmen and to work with them, even when I was a student myself. And really engaging with the students as they were coming into Penn State and having that experience. So, just kind of involved all the way around. And it really, I think, informed a lot of what my next steps were going to be in a career.
Before we dive into your career, which is extensive and storied, and you're having a great impact, you have some pretty interesting Penn State stories, right? Some of which, kind of happened by happenstance, right? Being put in the same room as a Fulbright scholar from Cyprus, right? That's random selection. But you also made some of your own opportunities. You have a great Joe Paterno story that I hope you might share with us.
Yeah, well, it is connected to my roommate too from Cyprus. We actually were planning on leaving for the semester. I want to say that we were both juniors at the time, and she was going back to Cyprus. It was over the end of the fall semester, and when we had that Christmas holiday break, and she really wanted to get a football signed by Joe Paterno before she returned to Cyprus that she could give to her brother. And I said, that's a great idea, and I'm going to do the same thing for my brother, and let's go and drop off footballs. And that's what you did, and then you picked them up after he would sign them. Well, it just, by sheer coincidence, and by the way, my roommate was sort of this demure, like really pretty sophisticated person, really kind of held back. We were coming into the parking lot, and she spotted Joe Paterno in the parking lot. And I've never seen this woman drive as fast as she did, but we looped around really quickly and literally jumped out of the car, and she approached Joe Paterno. I'm like, okay, well, if we're doing this, we're doing this. We grabbed our footballs and we went right up to him, and we ended up having an amazing conversation with him. Probably lasted almost a half an hour. Talked about everything from Cyprus and how much he knew. He was so well versed on just even that and the island of Cyprus. And then everything in terms of where we were from and just our academic goals. And he talked extensively about Wilkes-Barre, which is, the area I'm from up here in Northeastern Pennsylvania, and a lot of the amazing football players that came out of this area and their families, and how much he really enjoyed spending a lot of quality time, he said, in the kitchens of Wilkes-Barre, in a lot of homes where he was maybe recruiting or meeting with football players. And so it was just a really remarkable time and experience. We still have our footballs, of course, which are signed, but it's a memory that's imprinted. And really, when there were no cameras or no smartphones, it's just an interaction that was just completely pure and really inspiring. So it's one that I will always remember for sure.
I'm sure he mentioned Mike Munchak, Bucky Greeley, Jimmy Cephalo, all from the Pittston, Natticoke, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area, all in that area.
Paul, maybe I think exactly in that order too. And he really did. He had a great fondness for this region. So it was just really nice to hear all of that from him.
This is the People of Penn State. I'm Paul Clifford, and I'm joined by Katherine Pohlidal. She is the director of the Ruth Matthews Bourger Women with Children program. Before we dive into the program, talk about kind of the origin of your interest in this work.
Well, you know what? I think that if I were to rewind the tape and go back to Penn State and my own educational experience, I really focused my undergrad in sociology, but there was sort of a focus on criminology, and really started to learn through that process what it really, the impact of society and the demographics that we were looking at the time really seemed to open my eyes to what a lot of people, especially in poverty, were facing, and just these outcomes that were, pretty stark, and really thinking about how could I make a difference, how could I make an impact, not only with this degree that I was working toward, but where was I going to take that and how was I going to employ that in work. And it actually helped to navigate me to the master's degree I worked on while I was at Penn State too. And that was in counselor education, because I decided that I wanted to combine the knowledge that I had received and the background I had with an actual applicable way of helping people. And so by doing this, I was able to sort of combine the two degrees, and it really helped to create a trajectory for myself that landed me in working in a number of different types of environments. I actually started my career in corrections, working in a prison system, and really learning, I think in a monumental way, what the impact of the criminal justice system was having on people and what people were struggling with. And the common denominator seemed to be this whole theme around poverty. And so over time, I think I discovered that I really wanted to make a deeper impact. And it was when I actually left the job at the prison, one of the inmates actually had said to me when I was leaving, no matter what you do in your future, in your career, try to prevent this. And I think he meant what had happened to him. Try to do what you can to prevent this. And it really stuck with me. And so really when I think about all the work that I've done over the years, I really think it's been in that same vein of trying to make an impact, trying to make a difference. And lo and behold, I ultimately end up in higher education, working directly with families who are in poverty, working directly with women and children who really want to improve their lives. And one of the first days I was here at Misericordia with this program, we were helping a mom move in, and one of her sons, who was only 5 years old at the time, actually approached me, and he said to me, when I grow up, I'm going to jail. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him, and it was sort of in disbelief. I couldn't believe he actually had said that. And I said to him, I asked him, can you say that again? And he said, when I grow up, I'm going to go to jail. And I realized at that moment, I said, first, we're going to talk with your mom. And let's talk about this, because I think that maybe there are other ideas we have in mind for you that would be much better. And we certainly addressed it. But that was, to me, this sort of pivotal full circle moment where I landed in a place that is about 5 miles from the prison that I had started in my career so many years ago. And here I am with this 5-year-old boy who's telling me that's going to be his outcome. And I think at that moment, it was just like the lights all went on, like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to do. And all of the education, the training, and everything that I had done in the past was all purposeful. It had an intent to do what I could do right now. And that's be the director of this program that I've been now, at for almost 9 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's dive into that. Share a little bit about the work that you do at the Bourger Women with Children program.
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty distinct program. We're one of only 8 of our kind in the United States, but we're pretty distinct in that we are a program that offers 4 years of free housing and a lot of ancillary supports, very holistic approach to helping single mothers who are living in poverty access their 4-year degrees in higher education by being able to come here and reside here for 4 years with their children. And so we accept moms of any age from all across the United States, although we do some priority placement for women in Pennsylvania, and they can bring up to 3 children with them, and they reside together on our lower campus, and they go to school. They go to school together. They go, the children go to daycare if they're a little bit younger, but mom gets to concentrate on getting her 4-year degree, really working on professional development and those sort of post-baccalaureate skills that you need in order to secure a professional career. And what they do once they graduate, after we do this whole sort of 2-generation holistic approach with both the mom and the child for those 4 years, we help a lot of families not only leave the poverty line, but stay out. And so it's a remarkable experience for them. It's certainly very rewarding for us because we know we're making a huge difference in their lives. But we subsequently are also making a huge difference in the trajectory of their children's lives too. So what we're seeing is that we're breaking the intergenerational cycle of poverty 2 generations at a time. And it's a really incredible experience. It's a wonderful program. It's certainly one that I'm very passionate about. And it's starting to garner a lot more attention, I think primarily because of two major reasons. The first, because I think student parents or parenting students are surfacing more than ever in the United States, right, and are seeking out educational opportunities. And then I also think that as a country, we're starting to respond to those who are in poverty in a more aggressive, holistic way, that we need to do more in order to resolve this issue in our own demographics, in our own states, and in our own country. So it's been a driving force for not only Misericordia University in terms of something that we do that's very mission centered, but it's also an example of a model and a program that, frankly, the model actually is something I developed when I was at Penn State in my master's program. So it was something that I was able to take and really bring into this program and inject it into the program. And what we've seen are really remarkable outcomes at this point, with a lot of success attached to it. So I'm really proud of that.
So I've been in higher education for 25 years. This is the first such program of this kind that I have heard of. And so that's why I was really excited to talk to you about this today. First, I think it's a testament to the power of education and the power of access to education kind of being the silver bullet that lifts people out of the circumstances that they might find them in, right? And it's really, so it's fascinating from a number of aspects. First aspect I want to dive into is we think about, just in regular higher education, 18-year-old coming to your campus and all the resources that we need to put around that individual to be successful in navigating, the landscape of higher education. Now, bring a couple kids with you to that scenario. What are the services that you have to put around these families in order to get those two generations through this 4-year experience in a successful way?
It's a great question. And I think it starts with what you just touched on, which is how do we change the landscape of higher education? And I think I'm very committed to that in terms of, how do we talk a lot about DEI now, right? We talk about diversity, we talk about inclusion, we talk about equity, but I think we also need to talk about access. And I think for us, the access point matters. And so from the door, we're doing everything we can in order to best provide and enable the process to occur for these families. And so that means, we waive admission fees for our families because we know they're in poverty. We don't want a barrier at the door. We're looking at a full assessment on their needs so that we can understand what both mom and the child or children all need as they're entering in. It is not unusual, Paul, for us to have moms that enter our program and all they have is a car and a garbage bag of clothing. I recruit from non-traditional spaces, domestic violence centers, homeless shelters, places where you have families and you have moms especially who are trying to raise their children, but in these precarious circumstances. And what can we do to drive this process in a more holistic, better way for them? So that means meeting them where they are and then building them up as they go. And certainly empowering them. I think that's one of the big key elements to this, is that we're taking a deep dive with our families and we're asking them to trust us and to believe in us, and we're going to work with them. And so we have a community living environment that's sort of part of our model. You can't hide in our program. You are a student. If you're a student, you're going to be working on everything from your mental health and your well-being to, do you have food and are you food secure, and making sure there's access to healthy food. Children and the moms all have all the amenities of the university at their disposal. So if there's anything that we can do and provide as an institution, we're going to provide it. So speech language therapy, for example, for a child is something that we will certainly connect a child to. We also use an array of community services around us too. So it's a sort of the blending of all of these different offerings that come together to kind of patch together this amazing sort of way of holistically addressing both the mom's needs and the child's needs as they go. And we do emphasize a lot of the growth of the child, because if you think about it, developmentally, most of our children are under the age of 12. And so if they're here with us for 4 years, you're talking about a lot of development and growth. And so I've deeply committed to, I do a lot of grant writing in my role, a lot of fundraising in my role, because that's what we depend on for funding. But we look at what are the child's needs and how do we create family enrichment around that. And so we fund extracurricular activities every single year for every child. I've made swimming a requirement. Children have to learn how to swim by the time mom graduates. We encourage the mom to learn as well. Most of the time they do. We've done a lot in terms of, children's libraries and play areas and early literacy programming. You name it. And we have a number of Misericordia University student groups that also help to work with the children and work with the families as well. So pretty much anything you can think of, whether it's tutoring, student services, or counseling, you name it, we're going to build all of that around the family, and we're going to do it for 4 years. And then that last year, we're going to work with them to help transition them and help them to become successful in the next step. So nobody leaves until we have a full comprehensive plan for both the mom and the child. And we see that there's a lot of success in that. We have 100% post-baccalaureate professional placement for all of our moms if they go through our program.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's dig into some of those numbers around your program, right? You said one student can bring 3 children with them, right? Up to 3 children.
Yes.
What is the capacity of your program? How many students can you have in this program? How many children can you be serving at any one time?
Yep. So we've been growing, and the good news is we're growing right now. So as of this year and right now in this summer, we're going to be expanding, and we're adding a 4th house. So all of our program is built into 4 homes. We believe that home environments are the ideal situation for moms and children. And so we have 4 community living environments, 4 large homes on our lower campus. And at full capacity, we'll be able to support 20 single mother families with up to 3 children. And, and we accept moms from across the country. And then certainly with the children between the ages of 2 through 8 years of age upon admission, and then up to 12 years of age by the time mom graduates. And mom can be of any age. So we've had moms who are in their mid 40s, and they're coming to us and entering our program, trying to get their education and getting a secure job. We have moms who are traditional high school students that are coming right into college, like a regular traditional freshmen. So, it's a medley of moms and ages and children, and we become this very large sort of family unit. And then we just drive this whole process forward in that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing story that you're able to tell. It's interesting to me as somebody who's worked in public higher education my entire career. And when we talk about access to education, right, that's at the core of public higher education. And yet these programs seem to be based more so at private institutions. Is there maybe a reason in your mind as to why a private institution might be better suited for something like this?
Well, I think that's also a good question. I think that part of it has to do with when you have a smaller institution like a Misericordia, we're very mission based in terms of if there's been a sort of a religious organization or group, like the Sisters of Mercy are religious based, but they are very mission driven. And part of their mission is to educate women and children. So that's always been a driving force since they were back in Ireland and then came over to the United States. And so I think the sort of at the roots of that, you see sort of a mission that's fostered into the growth of a program like this, because it's responding to a very specific need that attaches to it. So, and I also think that sometimes these initiatives start small, and that's because, again, the capacity and, what can you afford to do? But I think sometimes that sort of smaller concentrated effort becomes the example, which in this case it has, to what you can role model and what could become scalable and then more impactful, perhaps through a larger lens. So if you're looking at other, public institutions, or you're looking at, even larger community colleges, places where you might be able to say, okay, well, we can do this too, but we have to replicate it a little differently, but we want to also look at what you're doing. So I think that's probably what it is. It's sort of a little bit more mission centric in that regard. And so that you have a sort of a driving force with an organization backing it up.
Yeah, there's numerous opportunities to work with this population, right? You've talked about how you're a practitioner and a clinician. You can work with these in a variety of settings and capacities: private practice, public service. You choose to work through higher education. What is it about higher ed that makes this an ideal setting for your work?
I think higher education, for me at least, it was a great sort of environment and platform to really understand that you can really impact a person and you have 4 years to do it. You always sort of have this nice timeline, a generous timeline where you're really able to work with a person and really have an impact. And so as a clinician, when I worked one-on-one with students, I really saw that evolution. I really saw that growth, and I could take time with that person. And I really could see a lot of changes and improvements in a lot of circumstances that I felt were really beneficial. And I think over time, I realized that could be broadened to something that's more programmatic, and where we could say, okay, look, we could take this approach. We have a nice, generous timeline again, but let's do it in a 2-gen type of format. Let's provide opportunity for so many women that would historically not even considered this as an option. And let's open the doors to that and really bring their children with them, so that the children also experience this too. It's not unusual for our kids to say, my mom goes to college and I'm going to as well. And that's exactly what's happened. So I think that helped. I think the attraction to seeing that you had a timeline and you have a lot of hope in that, a lot of adolescent sort of phase students who are trying to figure themselves out and really trying to kind of mature up and evolve as they go and self-actualize into not only their degree, but then their career. I just think it gave a lot of ample opportunity to really consider how you could foster that type of growth and be able to use that as sort of a springboard to do it even more so for people who may not necessarily have thought this could have been a part of their path.
Yeah. You talk about how much fundraising and grant writing are a part of your day-to-day. And those of us who do that as part of our career, right, we understand like the case study and storytelling and how important that is to that line of work. So what is the success story that you tell when you're sitting down from a donor to talk to them that inspires them to become supportive of your program? Kind of what is that one that stands out to you as this is the reason why we're here?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to say that I have a collection of them, right? I mean, just because there's just so many amazing, impactful stories. But one that really does resonate with me personally and sticks out is a woman who, by the name of Asia Thompson. She's very public facing about her whole experience. But Asia arrived to the program back in 2014, and she arrived with a car and 2 children, and that's about it. And the car, we were lucky that the car got here. And she came from a homeless shelter in New Jersey called Homefront. And she basically said, I fled a domestic violence situation. I had to get out with my children and I needed help. But I really believe that I could get my education. I believe I'm an academic. I think I can really do this. And, I worked very closely with her for the next 4 years, along with her 2 children. And definitely there's so many challenges along the way, but Asia rose to the top and really just graduated top of her class. She became an advocate. She actually spoke on Capitol Hill her senior year. I went with her. We were part of an NPR project for storytellers with NPR, and she actually spoke in front of Senator Vilsack, actually Secretary of Agriculture Vilsack, on Capitol Hill. And just, we had this remarkable experience, and she found her voice in this whole process. And so her children grow and they watch her grow. And she subsequently graduated from Misericordia University and then went on to New York Law and went to law school and is now a practicing attorney for the state of New Jersey as a prosecutor. And actually, I think at this point, too, an advocate and working for Results, which is another sort of incubator that helps to advocate for those who are in poverty, who are fleeing domestic violence, literally her experience. And so, and she's able to take that on a national level. So just looking at how you could go from homeless, not sure what's going to happen next, food insecure, home insecure, not knowing where you're going to go with children, and then to see 4 years later, and then with that trajectory to see this person, it's just an incredible experience to witness. It's certainly humbling to see how a person could really dig in deep and really make a real impact. And now she's advocating and helping others. So it's that full circle moment. And so, yeah, I think it's really inspirational to know that if you give people a true opportunity and you stick by them, they're going to blow the roof off of whatever expectations you had in the first place. And they're going to keep sailing on. So yeah, I'm incredibly proud of her, and I think, and she's just one of many fine examples of the achievements of our women. So
earlier in our conversation, you talked about your program still being in growth mode, right? 4 homes on the lower campus, 20 plus families impacted by the program. What does the future look like? What's next and on the horizon for the Bourger Women with Children program?
Well, I think in terms of in-house and for us, it's just about that internal growth and really refining ourselves and bringing in more families, which we're always actively doing, and making sure that we provide real opportunities for women who are seeking us out and really would like to get their education completed. But also, we have been asked on 2 fronts. There are 2 sort of simultaneous things going on that I think we're really proud of as well. The one is that 2 years ago, Governor Wolf basically found out about us, and it was really through DHS and the secretary at the time, Teresa Miller, along with State Senator Lisa Baker, had done some site visits here and really saw what we were doing with our program and our moms. And I think they brought it back to the attention of the governor. And lo and behold, he announced that he wants to start this new initiative statewide that is going to look at our model and our program and replicate it in the state. And so he announced this, and it was, big news for us, but certainly with funding to follow it, for $2.5 million to start and to really start to initiate this process. Now, COVID certainly slowed that down a bit, unfortunately, but at this point, it is starting to come back up, and it is we're actually considered exemplars for the state of Pennsylvania in their learning network for student parents or parenting students. And so we're very involved in that, and I'm really excited to see where that's headed. But it's certainly with at least a dozen higher ed institutions across the state that are these sort of original 12 that are looking at what we're doing, and we're part of that conversation. And then also at the same time, and on some level kind of coincidentally, the Robin Hood Foundation, which is based out of New York City, made the decision that they wanted to step beyond their catchment area of New York and launch a national pilot where they asked several states to get involved in communities where we could come up with sustainable solutions for poverty for families, and to really think about how we could do that. And so we had gotten involved again and proposed what we do, but to kind of branch out and scale it up. And Robin Hood came back and said, we're going to put, $1.7 million into this. We're going to back you. Please lead this and create something new for Northeastern Pennsylvania over a 5-county footprint. And let's see what you can do with this model, and let's make it more of a multi-sector approach. And I'm really pleased to say we're about to launch a new program here this summer that will be called the Parent Pathways Program of Northeastern Pennsylvania, largely based on the work that we do here, but with partners all over this 5-county footprint. And it's just wonderful to see so many people activated that want to work collaboratively, even other higher ed institutions, just all kind of converging together to say, how can we create a sustainable response to this poverty issue in our region? And knowing that if we can do this together, that we may actually really be able to make that sustainable impact. So it's been great. It's been a lot of work, but it's been great. And I'm really pleased that we're sort of at the epicenter of that.
It's amazing work. Katherine, we have a lot of Penn Staters that live in that region of Pennsylvania, and a lot of people that listen to the podcast. If people are interested in getting more information about your program, where can they find that?
I think the best way to find us is at the Misericordia University website, and just go to misericordia.edu/WWC. We come right up. Women with Children program is right there, and that's an easy way. Or you can contact me directly at just kpohlidal@misericordia.edu as another quick and easy way to reach me as well. So, and all of our contact information is housed there too. So everything from our online brochure to even just conversations on podcasts that we do. So just to gain more familiarity in our work and our impact, I think is, an important thing to do. So yeah, we welcome anybody with an inquiry or even a recommendation for a mom that might be looking for this opportunity. We welcome it.
This is the People of Penn State. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined by Katherine Pohlidal. She is the director of the Ruth Matthews Bourger Women with Children program at Misericordia University in Dallas, Pennsylvania. We like to have some fun at the end of our podcast with the lightning round. But before we get to that, you shared your Joe Paterno story, but your family also had an interesting interaction with our current head coach, James Franklin. Would you mind sharing that story?
Oh, I wouldn't mind at all. Yeah, so several years ago, so we're, I think around 2017, unfortunately, my mom was battling breast cancer. And, we were certainly very, very concerned and worried, and we didn't know what was really next. And so, we know that my mom is a huge Penn State fan, but she really, really loves Penn State athletics, particularly football and basketball. I think she feels, I think, like she's the mom to most of these students, but she follows it religiously and loves Coach Franklin. And we thought, you know what, well, maybe there's a way for us to maybe somehow access Coach Franklin, and maybe we could get him to maybe send a postcard or something like, good luck, we're thinking of you, or, just to kind of sort of champion my mom along a little bit, knowing that this would be a huge boost to her morale. And I happened to be with my parents visiting, and it was the 4th of July that year. And, that's a national holiday. I think most of us are already looking forward to some downtime spending with family and things like that. And I was at the house, and the phone rings. It was in the morning, and the phone rings, and I hear my mother talking and laughing, and as if maybe she was somebody she knew, or I thought maybe a family member or something. And she was on for a good half hour at least. And, she got off the phone, and she sort of looked a little bit dazed, a little puzzled. And she just started laughing, and she just said, "Oh my God." She goes, James Franklin just called me. And they had a lovely conversation. And he took the time on a national holiday, when I'm sure he was extremely busy with everything that he had to do at that time. And he did that. And I just think that that's a really remarkable thing to know that, it's not just a coach. It's way more. And I was just really, I get emotional, but it was a really proud moment, and it meant a lot to all of us. So I know she was extremely thankful for that. And we're really thankful that she's fine now and doing really well. But it was I just thought that was a really touching thing to do. And that's, again, no cameras, there's no attention there. There's nothing else except just a generous offer to take a little time, even away from his own family, to talk to mine.
That's an amazing story, and that's not surprising. Coaches doing things like that all the time. And, it's why we call our podcast the People of Penn State podcast. It's because it's the people that make this such a special place.
That's right. 100%.
All right. Lightning round. You ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Go for it.
Favorite class at Penn State?
Favorite class would probably be in my master's program, an adolescent development class with Kathleen Bieshke, Dr. Bieshke. I think I'm saying her name right. She was amazing. Yes. Wonderful class. I learned a ton. Wonderful.
Yes. And she is still here at the university.
Nice.
And just an amazing team member here. If you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why?
Whoa. I would probably, this is self-indulgent, but I'd say Dolly Parton.
Okay. All right.
And because I love her, I just think she's a wonderful human being, and she's a national treasure. And she came from poverty, and look what she's done. So I just think she's a huge inspiration. I'd love to have a conversation with her. Absolutely.
Does a lot of work with children and literacy.
Imagination Library. That's right. Yeah. Yes.
Your most unusual "we are" moment, maybe an unusual or unexpected place where you either saw a Penn Stater and yelled "we are," or you were traveling and heard "we are"?
Yeah, I have a really interesting one, and it actually ties to 2006. I'll never forget this. 2006, we were at the Orange Bowl, right? And Penn State. This was that crazy game where we went into 3 overtimes.
I was there.
You were there. I was not. Because I was in India at the time, actually. So it's a little outrageous, but I'm in India, and I'm like trying to contact my brother, and we're going back and forth. I'm like, what's the score? I'm literally in Agra looking at the Taj Mahal, this wonder of the world or whatever. And I'm looking at that, and really the whole time I'm preoccupied with what the score was. I'm like, and I kept saying like, oh, we're in first overtime. We're in second overtime. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what's going on? We're in a third overtime. I'm like, God bless you, Kevin Kelly, wherever you are. Thank you for that win. But I will say it was just hysterical. I was so happy that we won. And as I was leaving Agra, I was actually in like a kind of like an SUV type of vehicle. And, it was crowded everywhere and very crowded street. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy walking along the street in Agra, in India, with a blue Penn State jacket on, just Penn State on the back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do something here. And I just yelled, we are, and he turned around so fast and he just screamed, Penn State. I have never seen such a look of joy on someone's face so instantaneously. And he yells, we won. And I'm like, thank God, but that to me was certainly the most incredible we are I think I've ever experienced, and one I would never have predicted.
That's amazing. That was the longest night of my life. Leaving Dolphin Stadium at 3 a.m. It was it was crazy, but worth it, right? Worth it
Totally.
To stay for the end. So, how about your favorite Penn State sport?
Of course, I'm going to say football, but I have to be careful because remember, I also need to say rugby,
Right.
or I might hear it. So I would say that would be another one too. And sort of the trifecta on that, of course, all Big Ten sports at Penn State, but also the basketball. We just love it too. So yeah.
That's awesome. And how about your favorite flavor of creamery ice cream?
Oh man, that's hard too. I'd probably say coconut chip. That's my go-to.
Okay.
So I love it. So, but pretty much anything to the left or to the right in the coolers at the creamery, I'm game for all of it.
That's amazing. Well, Katherine, thank you for joining us on the People of Penn State podcast. Our alma mater says, may our lives swell thy fame. And you are certainly swelling thy fame of your alma mater with the work that you're doing at Misericordia. So keep up the great work, and thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. It's been an honor. We are
Penn State. I want to thank our producer, Vincent Longaro, our guest relations coordinator, Mara Ryan, for all of their great work on the People of Penn State. If you like this episode, I hope you'll subscribe to the People of Penn State podcast in your favorite podcast app of choice. And while you're there, give us a rating and drop us a review. Help us spread the word and share the stories of these great Penn Staters. If you're a member of the Alumni Association, thank you so much for your support. If you're not, what are you waiting for? Go to our website at alumni.psu.edu, and you too can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Thanks for listening and for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are.
To one heart that loves thy name, may our lives but swell thy fame.
Dear old state.